Politicians, with a couple of exceptions, are whores, thieves, thugs, and fools. That's what politicians are, all of them, with a couple of exceptions. That's why we have a constitution, because the people who wrote the Constitution understood that, right? That they were just regular guys, and right now, regular guys and women, right? And that maybe they would abide by the rules. And because they weren't going to abide by the rules, every couple of years we had to vote, we had to kick them out because they didn't abide by the rules. And if they were caught cheating, lying, whoring, whatever, the newspapers would rat them out, right? So newspapers don't do that anymore, the legacy newspapers. And if you look at the politicians who weren't whores, thieves, thugs, and fools, what happened to all of them? They killed them.
So how do we get out of this thing? I mean, it's connected to what the purpose of the book is. The point of the book of this pivotal moment, you know, can we save this great experiment? But how do we get out of this sort of culturally, politically, spiritually, however you want to take that?
Well, you're doing it.
I'm trying to do something.
Sure. I mean, what, you know, it's like Golda Meir said. Remember her secret weapon? Remember what it was?
I should know this. It was the people. It was the people.
She said, no, she said there's no alternative. Israel is a secret weapon. There's no alternative. Mm-hmm. Right. So our secret weapon is there's no alternative. So is that going to mean we're going to die at our post? Yeah, maybe. Sure. We're going to die anyway. So the question is, how do we want to spend our lives in the midst of this vast upheaval? So for years, I thought it was a huge mistake on the right for people to say, well, if we did this, if the Republicans did this, I can't believe that, Well, you know, it's time to believe it now. It's because it's true that there's a moment in our country that something new has to emerge, and we're either going to emerge into all civilizations die. We're going to emerge, except the Jews, which is why people hate us. We're going to emerge into a vigorous maturity, or we're going to be taken over by Russia, China, and Iran. There you go.
I suspect you don't think that the people in charge at the moment are quite up to the task.
Well, they aren't in charge. They're along for the ride. You know, there's a bunch of politicians, with a couple of exceptions, are whores, thieves, thugs, and fools. That's what politicians are, all of them, with a couple of exceptions. That's why we have a constitution, because the people who wrote the Constitution understood that, right? That they were just regular guys, and right now, regular guys and women, right? And that maybe they would abide by the rules. And because they weren't going to abide by the rules, every couple of years we had to vote, we had to kick them out because they didn't abide by the rules. And if they were caught cheating, lying, whoring, whatever, the newspapers would rat them out, right? So newspapers don't do that anymore, the legacy newspapers. And if you look at the politicians who weren't whores, thieves, thugs, and fools, what happened to all of them? They killed them, right? Pretty good examples. My favorite Jew, Jesus, killed him. Churchill, they threw him out of office, right? Saved Western civilization. They shot Dr. King. They shot Lincoln. They took Trump, who only wanted to do a good job, and treated him worse than any other citizen in this country has ever been treated, and they're still at it. So the people who say, wait a second, no, do not look behind the curtain, are the left. And so the right says there's nobody there. That was what my book was like, The Secret Knowledge. There wasn't any secret knowledge. Mm-hmm. There's what does it cost? Here's what politics is. It's the post office, the Navy, and the Army, and the Marines, and the Coast. That's it. Anything beyond that, you're going to attract the whores, thieves, blah, blah, and fools. So Trump comes in and says, yeah, let's deal with that. We'll let everything else go hang. They want to kill him because he's completely opposed to the zeitgeist, to the spirit of the time on the left. So they say, oh my God, he said this and he said that about grabbing the girl, blah, 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 blah. That's bullshit. That's the same thing as saying that Jews, they're greasy. You know, it's finding a reason for your prejudice that seems to make sense to you. Or say, oh, okay, he's got a big mouth and he sticks his foot in it. Therefore, I tell you what, let's open our borders and to give all of our money,
Right.
and start a nuclear war with Iran. Does that seem like a good idea? So the people on the conservatives say that's a rotten idea. Let's stop it using the means at our disposal. The problem is, in any cat fight, the person screaming the loudest is probably in the wrong, because the other person is saying, well, okay, I get it. You're out of your mind. Let's abide by the rules and see if we can come to some mutual agreement. So that's the right. So that's why the right gets accused of everything.
So how do you think we shift that paradigm? I'm sure you've heard the phrase, the Breitbart phrase, that politics is downstream from culture. The right obviously lost culture over a certain amount of decades. I think that actually is shifting right now, a little bit at least. But in terms of art and everything else, is there something better that, say, right-leaning or conservative? I mean, you described yourself before as an old school liberal. I mean, that's what put me on the map. I was trying to save liberalism from the left 5 years ago or 7 years ago. But for any of us that are roughly freedom-loving, you just want people to live and let live kind of people, what can we do culturally or artistically or through the type of work that you do to turn this thing around? Because it's not going to be the political leaders that turn it around, obviously.
Yeah, we can't do anything because that's not the purpose of art. Art is the conjunction of inspiration with an audience. That the artist has some inspiration, and if the inspiration is reducible to be kind to black people or hate white people or people dying of cancer deserve our compassion, that's not inspiration. So that's what art is. Art is very closely akin to religion, and it's not at all connected to politics or culture. Art, it's like the oyster. Right? The oyster makes the pearl, but the oyster can't use the pearl. But other people can use the pearl, but the oyster can't. The oyster isn't making that pearl to influence people to dress up their honey when they go out to the nightclub, right? The oyster has to make the pearl. It's going to go nuts. There's nothing that art can do. What we can do is speak the truth to each other and not give in, and not because it's the daily erosion of life. I'm going to tell you my 5 pronouns, or you liked. You wait a second. You have to identify yourself, or are you vaccinated? This constant shepherding each other day to day, which is killing. And to be able to deal with this retail is exhausting. It has to be dealt with wholesale. And the way the individual deals with wholesale, say, thanks, I'm not playing. I'm not playing that game. It's like what we learned from, I learned anyway from my, gay friends, gay liberation 30 years ago, 40 years ago. We're here, we're queer, get used to it, right? It's not my problem that I'm gay, right? If you got a problem with it, that's your problem. So that's what we have to do. We have to speak up and say, in effect, we're here, we're queer, get used to it. Because then it starts to crumble a little bit. And that look on people's face, when you've seen it, where they say, "Oh my God, he's not playing my game."
That actually gets nicely to a phrase that's in the book that I really loved. You talk about a virus of conformity, and that seems to be it almost more than anything else. That the media, the politicians, the people, COVID vaxes, gender pronouns, the whole thing, that everyone is in on a bunch of stuff that nobody really believes.
That's true. But as Shakespeare, another Jew, said, truth's a bitch that must be whipped to kennel, while Lady the Brach can sit by the fire and stink. Lady the Brach means a female dog. Truth's always a bitch that must be whipped to kennel.
If you're looking for more honest and thoughtful conversations about politics instead of nonstop yelling, check out our politics playlist. And if you want to watch full interviews on a variety of topics, watch our full episode playlist all right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.